I'm John McCullagh from PositiveLight.com. We're here today in the offices of the Toronto People with AIDS Foundation with the agency's Executive Director, Murray Jose. Hi, Murray.
Hello.
And Murray, Toronto PWA is unique amongst AIDS service organisations in the Toronto region in that you work exclusively with people living with HIV. What is the background to that?
Yeah, so, PWA began with some individual gay men living with HIV who were feeling that the focus in the community was very much on education and that they weren't getting the level of support that they felt they needed to have in a space that was really specific to them living with HIV and to the daily practical needs that were there and the community that can be created when people living with HIV/AIDS are together. And so, PWA was created, and the focus has always been on both of those things. So very focused on practical direct support services, making sure that people have what they need on a day-to-day basis. So, food programming, helping make sure that people have access to medication, oftentimes at points of transition. So if people are moving from employment to disability or moving on to starting treatment regimen, those kinds of significant thresholds in one's life, that often is a point where they'll come to PWA and look for support.
Right. You actually said that PHAs are at the heart and soul of your organisation. What do you mean when you say that?
And so that I think that carries forward from its roots. So we were created by PHAs. We are somewhat unique in that we do have the majority of our staff and volunteers are PHAs. Of course, not everybody. There are many allies that contribute their heart and soul and time and energy to the work with us as well. But many of our volunteers and staff are people living with HIV/AIDS, and so it creates a unique opportunity in our efforts to make sure that our decisions, our discussions, our programming, our prioritizing, all of those things are really informed by the lived experience. We're not going to look only at the latest trend in this or that or the latest model of service delivery. We want to incorporate all of those kinds of learnings and evidence and research, but we want to have the decisions made with the lens and the focus and the conversation being led by and really inspired by people living with HIV/AIDS.
Right. Now, this is the 25th anniversary of the founding of your agency, and I guess many of us who were around 25 years ago never thought at the beginning of the epidemic 30 years ago, I guess now, that an agency like this would still be around. But you've had some pretty significant achievements over those past quarter century.
Yeah.
Do you want to highlight a few of those for us?
Yeah, it's I will say it's been very intense and moving to look at and try to honor and acknowledge 25 years. I certainly didn't expect to be alive, as most of us didn't, let alone, here, hopefully providing some leadership and guidance and support. And when we looked at it, there were some really moving and inspiring, just many stories, right? But I want to say a couple of things. We approached it from the perspective of storytelling, which has been important for us and a focus that we've used for about 7 years as a really useful way to tap into the strengths that exist and build upon those and use that as a way to explore and respond to our work. Obviously, there have been some really key things over the 25 years. So, we were able to get some core funding from the government, which stabilized some of the service provision that was there and stabilized some of what we were able to offer. We had a long period of time where we shared an office with the AIDS Committee of Toronto, which was very helpful in a number of ways. And then, of course, we got to a point where there was a conversation around whether to merge the two agencies, and that was, very emotional and important discussion to have. And ultimately, that didn't happen, but it helped to, I think, shape and clarify for PWA what our culture was and who we were and what was important and what our differences were. From not only the AIDS Committee of Toronto, but also for other agencies, so that we could be really clear and maximize, how we can support and work with other agencies rather than, duplicating services. And so that was important. And from that, we did some planning and ended up moving here at 200 Gerrard Street East, which has had a huge impact. We didn't have enough space in the other building, and ACT also needed some more space at the time. And, this has just felt like we've just had so many, I don't know how to describe it, but we've just had so many positive comments from people. So often the places that we go to as people living with HIV/AIDS to access services are, it's the cheap basement in a rundown building or something, because that's all we can afford. And, why should we accept that? And why should it not be important to create a space that physically actually makes you feel like you're valued and that you deserve services, that you deserve effective and accountable services by people who, understand and in a space that feels, recognizes your holistic needs. And I don't want to use words that are kind of motherhoodish, for lack of a better term, but that kind of space is really important. And then just the program impact of moving here, right? So we've been able to have space that has allowed us to grow programmatically. We do a lot of partnership programs that take up some space around complementary therapies, massage clinics, and so on, where students come in and provide complementary therapies for clients, and so that takes up space, but it has a huge impact. The stories that we hear where acupuncture and massage have a really strong impact on someone struggling with, gastrointestinal or neuropathy or fatigue, it's wonderful. It's very powerful. And then, of course, moving to the point of 25th and looking at where we are and where we've come from and where we want to go, it's been pretty amazing. And I will highlight one other piece, because we're in a transition for this. So in 99, we started, the Friends for Life Bike Rally started, of course, and that came to us.
This is a fundraising initiative.
It's a fundraising event, right, from where we cycle from Toronto to Montreal over 6 days. And it came to us as a kind of a third-party event from one of the board members, David Linton, who since passed away, and Danny Nashman, who founded it and brought it to PWA, and we took it on, and it's just grown exponentially. We've passed the $10 million raised mark last year. Next year will be the 15th anniversary for that, and it's become our core, fundraising event that allows us to do what we do. So it's been a pretty amazing milestone for us too.
Yes. Do you ride on the rally?
I've done it 6 years, and it's incredible, right? It's, one of my things I like to push, I like to challenge people's perceptions a little bit, and sometimes my own, right? And so doing that, I'm a fairly active person, but for me it was a kind of a snubbing of HIV kind of thing, right? It's kind of like you're not going to be limited by what someone thinks I can do or not do based on having a virus. So
excellent,
yeah,
wonderful. So now looking forward to the next several years, I don't want to say the next 25 years, because I hope by that time there will be a cure for HIV,
right.
But there's only a very dim light at the end of the tunnel at the moment. So what do you see as your vision for the next few years here at Toronto PWA?
Well, we've just done some planning that finished up in the fall, and it's been really, really exciting. We asked a few questions that we knew were going to help us get clarity in a couple of directions, and they were things that were happening in the community and nationally and internationally, looking at health promotion, looking at engagement is the phrase that we use, but that's very much the for people that are familiar with the terms, the greater or meaningful involvement of people living with HIV/AIDS. So that was a piece of it. And it was fantastic. We did lots of one-on-one interviews and story sharing, and came up with some really great directions, and got clarification on those two things. One of the things that came out of that, which we hadn't expected at all, was that people raised the need for support around dreaming. And at first it was kind of, dreaming seems very ethereal. What does that mean, and what can you actually do to support someone's dreams? But it just kept coming up, and people were talking about the fact that when they were diagnosed, their dreams either died or were put on hold, and that as for many, as health improved or life prolonged, that they were really struggling with how to re-engage and reconnect with their dreams and with moving forward. And so it was a real eye-opener, and it was really exciting to think about how PWA could look at some new programming, look at some coaching, some life skills, some ways of connecting people together with others that could help to restart some of those dreams and to see them come to fruition for people. So that is really exciting, and I think quite new in our work. Again, because we do have the unique perspective of having a lot of people living with HIV/AIDS in staff and volunteer and board and other roles, we really are in our current plans. We're really trying to really maximize or come up with very concrete and powerful ways that demonstrate involvement of people living with HIV/AIDS. So we all know that services tend to be more effective, they're more meaningful, they're more connected when people living with HIV/AIDS are directing them and are making decisions and are behind them. That's easy to say, and it's certainly doable at decision-making board levels and things like that. But then you get into the actual office. Well, what does that look like? So how are you actually supporting a PHA who's a volunteer or a staff? How are you supporting clients who might be interested in moving into one of those roles? For example, we know that volunteers, that people living with HIV/AIDS who access services, if they step into a volunteering role, often stop taking care of themselves. And so what do we actually, from a practical perspective, put in place to make sure that those volunteers are supported in a new way as PHAs? So there's pieces of that we're going to be really looking at and really excited. And a couple of other quick things. I think it's fair to say that we were a leader in looking at pause prevention and the question of, however you phrase it, whatever you want to call it, but the involvement of people living with HIV/AIDS in prevention work, and recognizing that we have a role in that, and that inadvertently some of the campaigns have actually further stigmatized us. Mm-hmm. So we've done some really great work and been involved in lots of great work with the Gay Men's Sexual Health Alliance and others, and we want to very much continue that. And that will be important. And the other piece that we're looking to make sure that we respond to and try to do as much as we can. Two pieces. One is criminalization, that is, of course, so important in our everyday lives. And then the other is treatment and prevention, and recognizing that there's just a lot of information and a lot of misinformation around how treatment can impact how infectious we are, but also how important it is for us to have those choices and to have accurate information in the choices that we make and in our sexual health. And so those are two other areas that we're looking at.
Well, Murray, those are very exciting, stimulating visions. And you've invited us to come back at positivelight.com to talk with you and some of your staff and volunteers about some of those initiatives and programs, and we'll certainly look forward to doing that over the next few months.
Yes, well, and I just will flag as we finish up that our final anniversary event at the end of several months is November 30th, and it's at Glenn Gould Studio on November 30th at 8 o'clock in the evening. And if you go to pwatoronto.org, we'll have tickets available, and it's going to be a really nice evening of a combination of entertainment and performances, and also lots of community reflections on the 25 years and the context in PWA's role. So we hope people can join us.
So we'll be there.
Great.
So, Mary, thank you so much for taking the time to talk with us. It was really, really great. Thanks. So I'm John McCullagh from positivelight.com.